Hey, what's going on? This is Sports Truth. I'm your host, Jordan Harris. Today we're going to be talking about Miami Hurricanes. So, speaking directly to my Miami Hurricanes fans out there. And specifically, we're talking about the Miami Hurricanes concern meter. Where should it be at right now? So, today I'm going to be telling you about where my concern meter is, and then I'm going to be talking about, like, if we should be, as a collective, if we should be concerned at all about a lot of developments that's going on right now. All right, so first I want to take a step back, talk about the fact that if you have concerns, you have to have had some expectations, right? The only way you can be concerned about something is if you had some level of expectation. So I want to tell you about what my expectations were for the Hurricanes this upcoming season. So the way I looked at this team is like I was like thinking the starters could compete with just about anybody starters in the whole country. I really feel like that with the starting 11 on the offense and the starting 11 on defense. I think we can compete with just about anybody except the quarterback. That was the spot that we really were losing at. Tyler Van Dyke kept throwing the ball to the other team, and then we had just some inexperienced quarterbacks behind that, which is why Tyler Van Dyke had such a long leash, right? So I felt like our offensive line was crazy good, one of the best offensive lines in the whole country. Also, our skill positions I thought were really good as far as the receivers, running backs. We didn't really use the tight ends all season, but we had a lot of talent in the tight end room. Just looking at all the recruits that we've had over the last few years, and then our safeties, like our defensive safeties, I thought we had the best safety tandem in the entire country with Cam Kinchins and then James Williams. I thought those were the best safety tandem in the entire country. I don't care what you talk about, Alabama, Georgia, any tandem you find out there. I think we had the best safety tandem in the entire country. Um, I also thought this coming season, I figured we would have an outside chance of making the playoffs. So I thought at the end of the year, if they take 12 teams next year, I figured we would be like 14th or 15th, somewhere in there, where I figured we would barely miss the playoffs next year. And then I thought the year after that, we would make the playoffs and then have a really good chance of winning the whole thing. That was my expectations, okay? So I thought we had really good start in 22, but we were really struggling with two things. First was quarterback, and the other thing that set us apart from being where Miami is now compared to Georgia or Alabama or Texas. One was quarterback, the other thing was depth. The start in 22 was just fine, but then there was a big gap, I thought, from the starters to those backup roles. Big, huge gap in those areas. So that's the 2 points that I thought we were really I think that's the two things that separated Miami from those big schools, those schools that are always looked at as potentially winning the championship, is QB and depth. Those are the two things. So now let's talk about my level of concern for the Hurricanes, and I'm just going to go from when the season first ended to where we are now. Okay, and I'll just stop and tell you where my concern meter was at those points, at certain points. So we finished the season really strong, and I'm not even including the bowl game because the bowl game is its own thing. So we finished the season on a high note, won our last game by quite a bit. My concern level was down to like a zero because I'm thinking, man, we looking real good for next year. We're going to be real close to making the playoffs. We're going to continue getting this recruiting like we've been getting, and it's just momentum going sky high. Everything is looking great. So then the transfer portal is about to open up, and everybody's kind of nervous, like, oh man, the transfer portal, it giveth and it taketh away. You know what I'm saying? So it's exciting at one point, but then it's also like, oh boy, who's going to leave? So just like anything else in life, the transfer portal provides balance. It gives and it takes, right? So when the transfer portal was being announced or when it was about to be released, I really wasn't too nervous. I was one of those people who was saying to sit Tyler Van Dyke for the last 3 or 4 games and just help him find the best location for him to transfer. I was like 99% sure he was gonna go. He was gonna leave Miami after this season. So whenever they announced the first wave of transfers, it was Tyler Van Dyke, Corey Flagg, Don Chaney, and Jafari Harvey. Right. So with those four people, those four players announcing that they were transferring, I was not surprised and I was not concerned even a little bit. Like I said, I expected Tyler Van Dyke to leave. Corey Flagg was the one surprise that made me go, ooh, that's a little tough. Don Chaney, I mean, I wasn't I wasn't really high on him. I've spoken about his performances on this channel before. I wasn't really high on him, so his leaving didn't bother me at all. Harvey, we have a lot of depth as far as the defensive ends, and he had so much of his time taken away from the young, impressive Bain that it wasn't a super crazy shock when I saw that he was leaving. So once we got their first four transfer portal players announced, I was like, okay, my concern level, if it was at a 0 before, maybe it's at a 1. Not a big deal because the players that left, I didn't think that they left big voids. Wasn't concerned at all. All right, so then we had more recruiting stuff happening. So we had a big flip, huge flip from an offensive lineman. That was a big deal. So after that, my concern level went from where it was back down to 0. I'm like, oh yeah, we looking good. The momentum is still steadily climbing. We looking just fine. Then we had an announcement of even more departures, okay? And this is the part that I was really bracing for. I'm sitting back like, okay, that first wave of transfer portal players, not a big deal. Recruiting is still going well. We looking just fine. But we could potentially lose some players to the NFL. I kept saying that. Then we had Matt Lee, the starting center, one of the best centers in the nation, leave, going to the NFL. God bless him. I think that's the right decision. James Williams and Cam Kinchens leaving. Tough blow. Tough blow. I don't care who you are. I don't care what team you root for. You've got to be able to say, that's a tough blow for the Hurricanes, losing both of them. Then we got Leonard Taylor III leaving, defensive tackle. Really good player. He was talked about leaving the draft before the season even started, leaving into the draft. So we kind of knew that was happening. And then we have Cohen, offensive lineman, leaving. That kind of hurt a little bit. He transferred from Alabama. He came in and played really well. Then Kobe Young announced he was leaving. That one really hurt me because I can't tell you how many Saturdays I sat on my couch and said, just throw it up to Young because he's like 6'4", 6'5", athletic beast. So many times I sat on my couch and I'm like, just throw it up to Young. He'll get it. So the fact that we're losing a big target like that hurts a little bit. And then Jaleel Skinner is also leaving, tight end. I'm thinking he's probably frustrated because the tight ends weren't really used this year at all. I remember being really excited when he signed a couple years ago, so that was kind of tough to see that happen too. So everything, so that's the end of that part, right? Where the other departures. So everything that I was really banking on this coming year, not everything, but a lot of what I was banking on this coming year is now gone, right? So I always saying that we had a really good offensive line, but then Cohen leaves, Matt Lee leaves. It's like, okay. And then I'm like, we got a really good defensive line too, though. Our defensive line is really good. And then Leonard Taylor leaves. It's like, okay. And then I said, we got the best safety tandem in the country. Nobody can throw the ball because our safeties are so, like they come up and they run stop. They also can play the pass exceptionally well. They both are ball hawks. So I'm like, safety's looking really good. And then both of them, not just one, both of them leave. That was a tough kick. So let's talk about the transfer portal before I just say where I'm at right now as far as my concern level. The transfer portal, what it did, just to give an analogy, is it made it's like an oven and a microwave. Okay, so before the transfer portal, building a college football team was really similar to oven, cooking in an oven, right? You had to put something in there, wait 30 minutes to an hour, whatever it may be, for it to slow bake. The transfer portal, what it did to college football is it allowed people to build their team quick, like a microwave, right? So you could have the worst defense in the country this year, and you could go to the transfer portal and be in the top 10 defense just overnight because there's players that come in who are already developed. You don't have to bring in these 4-star players from high school who have never spent a week training and spent a week looking at film on particular thing. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of thing changes everything when you can bring in these players who already know how to prepare in a full week of Division I college football. You don't have to take off the training wheels on these brand new people coming in from high school. So building a college program is totally different. So it helps with the oven and the microwave analogy. That helps because you can see how quickly you can build your team. But it's also a negative thing because it can deplete your team just as fast as it can build your team. If you bring in 15 to 20 transfers and they all play really well, and then the next year they're all gone, now you're stuck with those freshmen that you brought in the year before, and you better hope to God that those freshmen were being developed, or you're going to have a horrible team that following year. You follow me? So that's kind of where I'm at right now is we did bring in a lot of really good players from the transfer portal, and now a lot of players are leaving, so we're in a position where we got to say, I hope to God that these players who have been recruited over these last couple of years have been developed into something really quality, or we're going to have a real sketchy year this coming year. The only thing that could save us outside of players being incredibly well developed is performing really well in the transfer portal this year, just like we did the last couple of years. So we're obviously looking for a quarterback right now. Everybody's hoping and praying that Cam Ward decides to come to the Hurricanes so we can get this quarterback thing figured out. But then there's also a bunch of other gaps that we got to figure out with safety, with corner, with the defensive line now. So there's quite a bit of gaps that this last couple of weeks has presented for the Hurricanes. So my concern level right now is at like probably a solid 6. I went from 0 to 1 to 2, back down to 0. But when I saw these other people leave, Matt Lee, like these leaders, Matt Lee, Cam Kinchens, James Williams, Leonard Taylor, and Kobe Young, I was like, oh boy. So yeah, I'm at a 6 right now. Almost at a 7. Mainly because my expectations were so high next year, expecting to be really close to making the playoffs. If we don't make some significant gains in the transfer portal over these next few weeks, my concern level is probably going to be an 8, and I'm going to be thinking more like we'll end the year at the end of the ranking system, so somewhere like 25, maybe 26, somewhere in there. So really interested in knowing what y'all think. Are you concerned at all? Am I crazy for having such a high level of concern right now? Super curious about what y'all think about this. Are other Miami fans ready to jump off the bridge because y'all like, oh man, it's going downhill? Or are you optimistic like I typically am, and you're feeling like there's momentum all over the place? We're looking good for the future. So talk to me in the comment section. Let me know. I'm super involved in the comment section, as you probably know by now. I respond to almost every single comment in the comment section. We are working to get 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so please do like and subscribe to the channel. The wonderful thing about subscribing is that it costs you nothing. If it did cost you something, I would not ask you for it. I have enough of everything, so I wouldn't ask you for anything other than subscribers. That's all I'm asking for. All right. As I always say at the end of the video, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. So take care. God bless. Peace.